advocates say another prisoner has died on Rikers Island. They say that brings the total this year to 11. Several of the recent deaths involve people who've been locked up for extended periods of time by themselves, isolated from the rest of the jail population. Tonight, the I-Team investigates the use of locking shower stalls to detain prisoners. As Chris Glorioso reports, jail overseers have raised big concerns about these small spaces. And Adam, the I-Team has learned one of the 2 prisoners to die just this week spent time locked in shower stalls. The attorney for his family says he suffered from mental illness, and that kind of extreme isolation clearly played some role leading up to his death. The images are tough to look at. Obtained exclusively by the I-Team, they show prisoners at Rikers Island locked in what are called decontamination showers. They're designed to rinse detainees off when they're hit with chemical sprays used to break up fights. But at this week's public meeting, members of the City Board of Correction raised concern these showers are being used as a form of prolonged isolation.
One of the decontamination showers that I viewed last week had, I think in GRVC, was a locked cage.
At the meeting, Correction Commissioner Louis Molina said the shower stalls are part of what he called de-escalation units, which are used as places to calm prisoners and keep them safe after violent incidents.
Each of our facilities' de-escalation units provides a secure and safe place to place individuals post an incident. There are decontamination showers in the de-escalation units.
Isolation is isolation.
Anissa Sabor is a former Rikers prisoner who says she experienced more than 100 days of solitary confinement in the 80s.
Shut it down!
She now organizes for Halt Solitary, a group that's been calling for an end to all forms of solitary confinement. She said using shower stalls like these is inhumane.
I spent time in a regular solitary cell. This was a brick wall room with a door, right? I could not imagine being held in that small cage.
The Department of Correction has not said how often decontamination showers are used to lock prisoners up, but the I-Team has learned one of the latest prisoners to die in Rikers, Elijah Muhammad, spent time locked in a shower stall last month. In this Board of Correction email, a staff member writes he was removed approximately 6.5 hours after he was placed in the shower cage. What makes his placement particularly alarming is that he was not sprayed with chemical spray, so there was no need for a decontamination shower. Muhammad survived that time in isolation, but 1 month later he was found dead in another jail cell. The attorney for his family says they're still awaiting an autopsy, but in the days leading up to death, Muhammad spent 32 hours in isolation. He wants to know if any of that time was spent locked in a shower stall.
When you look at the cage, whether it's called a de-escalation unit or however they choose to identify it, it's cruel and inhuman.
Family of Muhammad aren't the only ones demanding answers about these shower stalls. Last year, 25-year-old Brandon Rodriguez died in Rikers while he was locked in a decontamination shower. His mother calls it torture.
I can't imagine what my son went through, and I find it completely disgusting that no one's doing anything about it.
Families of Brandon Rodriguez and Elijah Muhammad have both filed notice they intend to sue the city over their loved ones' deaths behind bars. We reached out to the Department of Correction with several specific questions about the use of decontamination showers. We did not get answers on those. The department did write back to say one staff member has already been fired in the case of Elijah Muhammad, and after every death, there is an administrative investigation to determine corrective action. Back to you.
I know you will continue to dig for answers, Chris. Thank you for doing that.
City Hall for Thursday, July 14th, 2022. I'm Errol Lewis. The number of deaths in city jails is on track to surpass the number we saw last year. Another sign of a Department of Corrections that remains in crisis. Many of those fatalities were suicides and overdoses. Our Courtney Gross spent time with some grieving families who are still reeling from the loss. She joins us now with tonight's exclusive top story. Good evening, Courtney.
Good evening, Errol. For the last year and a half, we really have seen tragedy after tragedy on Rikers Island. So we decided to spend some time with families who've lost loved ones while they were in the city's custody.
I have more of his sneakers, but I wanted to keep these. Then his Yankee hat.
It's been about 11 months.
And then his ashes. I've never seen something so beautiful.
Last August, Tamara Carter lost her son on Rikers Island.
There's that awkward emptiness, and nobody wants to say what we're missing. And you could just tell in everyone's face that there's something missing. And that's Brandon.
She says she doesn't often go up to where he slept in their Westchester home. They keep a shrine to him downstairs in the dining room.
I miss his dancing, or he would just be sitting there and just start dancing out of nowhere. No music on. It's like, what are you doing?
Brandon Rodriguez was 25 years old when he committed suicide in an isolated shower pen while on Rikers Island in August of last year.
It kind of breaks me to feel that he was broken by being in there. And if he did do this to himself, I think that was his only way out, so he thought.
Deaths on Rikers Island have become a common occurrence. In 2021 and 2022, 26 people in custody or very recently released from custody have died. While visiting Rikers last month, the mayor told reporters to examine exactly how some of these detainees passed away.
We should look into each death, because if you have pre-existing conditions, by the time people reach Rikers, their health has deteriorated, and they come to these facilities. Let's find out, why did they die? Because Rikers didn't give them heart disease, if that's the reason they died. Rikers didn't give them diabetes, if that's the reason they died.
An examination of those deaths makes it clear many were not natural, but instead suicides and drug overdoses. Of the fatalities where a cause of death has been determined, according to the city medical examiner's office, there have been at least 8 suicides in city jails or custody since the beginning of 2021. A clear indication of the mental health crisis occurring on the island. That includes Rodriguez.
I believe all 26, since they couldn't be kept safe, to me they were all murdered.
Do you think that's what happened to your son?
Absolutely. If he got the mental health that he needed in there from the medical staff, maybe he'll still be alive today.
And it also includes Amanda Velasco's husband, Javier.
And then I keep his cross from his funeral next to my bed, along with these 2 pictures, and then a singular picture of him with a white candle.
She says they had a toxic relationship. Her husband was an alcoholic, and a string of domestic violence episodes and calls to the police sent him to Rikers, where she says he deteriorated more.
My husband was hopeless because of the system. He had been in and out of jail so many times. He said to me on one of those phone calls, I said, they'll just let them send you someplace where you can get help. And he's like, the cops, the district attorney, everybody thinks that there's just help out there. There's not. There's just jail.
This was his 3rd suicide attempt on Rikers, she says. One, she says, was the same week he died.
And he said that he tied a sheet up to the vent and then hung himself with it. And I don't understand. If he had a previous attempt that week, why would they put him in a cell with bed linens if he had just tried to hang himself on Tuesday? Who does that?
He died on that Friday. In both of these cases, these families have filed notices of claim with the city. In Rodriguez's case, the preliminary death report from the city's Board of Correction is mostly redacted, but it states, an initial review of the case highlights serious and recurring problems with the jail system's current intake and housing assignment process that warrant further exploration in the context of ongoing staffing shortages, medical delays, and an uptick of self-harm incidents in intake pen areas across the jails. His death is currently under investigation by the Attorney General's office.
So it's still very, very unreal to me.
It is not just suicides that are increasing on Rikers, it's drugs too. According to the medical examiner's office, at least 5 detainees have died on Rikers Island since 2021 because of overdoses. Several other deaths are believed to be suspected overdoses, including the most recent fatality this week of Elijah Muhammad. A correction officer was already fired for his role in that incident. A source in the department said the officer failed to respond to a clear medical emergency. We met Muhammad's family and their lawyer in Lower Manhattan on Thursday.
How much longer is this going to go on? How many more people, how many more families are going to have lost? How many more people are going to lose their loved one to this?
The medical examiner's office is still reviewing those cases, and many families are still waiting for answers.
One is too many. 26 is definitely a huge problem. Why is everybody just sitting back?
Clearly a lot of heartbreak there, and we're just learning tonight also that the Muhammad family will be filing a notice of claim with the city as well for about $25 million. We did get a response from the city, and we have a statement from the Department of Correction here where it says, in part, following every death, we conduct an administrative investigation, implement policy review, and take corrective action when needed. Prior to the pandemic, deaths in custody were at their lowest, and unfortunately, like many other correctional systems across the country, we have seen a concomitant and tragic increase. We strive every day to do everything within our power to prevent deaths in custody. And Errol, along with that statement, we did get some background from the city as well, showing that in other jurisdictions, let's say like Charlotte or Philadelphia or San Diego, they're seeing an increase in deaths as well after the pandemic. Obviously, the pandemic has exacerbated drug use, has exacerbated mental health crisis, which we're clearly seeing not only in our city jails, but across the city.
Yeah, no, there are a couple of things that the city cannot escape responsibility for, though, right? Like, you're not supposed to be able to get drugs that can cause an overdose while you're in city custody.
Exactly. And, not only the 5 deaths that have been determined by the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner as clearly overdoses, we think that there are at least, a handful of other ones that could be attributed to an overdose as well. And I think, when the mayor was on Rikers Island last month, when he made those comments about, so-called pre-existing conditions of why people were dying on Rikers Island. He had a big display behind him of the so-called contraband that the correction officers and the Department of Correction had been able to successfully get from detainees so far. And there was lots of drugs that they showed on that stage showing fentanyl within Rikers Island, K2 within Rikers Island, cocaine within Rikers Island. The big question is, how is it getting there?
Right. And then, of course, on this question of pre-existing conditions, one of the first things that's supposed to happen is you have an intake process at which point people are supposed to be assessed, right? I mean, if you have a string of suicide attempts in your past, you're not supposed to just be marched into a cell with bed linens, right?
Exactly. I mean, one would think that you would have a mental health evaluation and that you would be put on some sort of suicide watch. Obviously, suicides are a big issue when you look at these statistics and these numbers, and presumably this is going to be under investigation by the state attorney general's office. It was April of 2021 where the state legislature gave the state attorney general the authority to investigate these kinds of deaths within Rikers Island, within correctional settings. And so far, we're being told by the attorney general's office that of the 2021 deaths, that they still have 6 open cases, one of which we know is Rodriguez's, and then of the deaths thus far on Rikers Island this year, of which there are 10 either on Rikers Island or in some other custody, or someone was, recently released from custody. Those 10 cases are all open, according to the Attorney General's office.
Let's relate this back to some other reporting you've done. I mean, the city can point to Charlotte and Philadelphia and so forth, but only one big city system is at risk of being placed into receivership by the federal government, and that's New York City, right?
Exactly, and the federal judge has, given the okay for the city to keep control of Rikers Island. That happened last month, and how many deaths have occurred since she even gave that order, saying that the city is competent enough to keep control of that so far? We've seen several. They're not going to be back in court until October, and one wonders whether or not she's going to reassess that then.
Okay, thanks very much. Great reporting.